Working in video production full-time requires me to own and operate a variety of different lights that I use to create my videos. One of my favorites to use is an RGB light, especially on a shoot like this where colors and branding are very important.
Are you going to put all the lighting to do that? Or
for example, the color for this shoot is light blue, so I'm using this Sutefoto RGB light to add a little light blue color pop on the wall, just to add a little on-brand coloring. Wait a minute, those are the old gloves. Swap out for the new colors and we are matching. Hey, welcome to another episode of Ray of Light. This is the Sutefoto P100. It is a 100 watt full RGB light that can be powered through NPF batteries, and it has a bowens mount so you can use it with all your traditional modifiers. So let's jump into it. Welcome to episode 3 of Ray of Light. I'm your host, Ray Valencia, just your friendly neighborhood filmmaker. Actually, I'm a videographer based out of Florida, and this series is all about lighting tutorials, gear, and tips to help you create better videos. So right now I have this Sutefoto P100. Actually, I have 2 of them, and you are able to link them up in the Sutefoto app. But the cool thing about this light is it actually has different lighting effects, and it has 36,000 different color options if you include all the different intensities and everything with the light. The P100 has several different modes from CCT. It ranges from 2800 Kelvin all the way up to 10,000 degrees Kelvin. So very, very warm to very, very cool. And we're gonna test the scores on that later in the video. In fact, I'll list everything here on the screen right now that we're going to be testing out in this video. So if you want to jump ahead to a certain section, I'll also put the chapters down in the description below with the links. And the scores on this light are actually pretty high. This light is rated with a CRI score of 96 plus and a TLCI score of 95 plus. So we are also gonna test out the CCT scores and the LUX and everything later in the video. But first, let's go ahead and jump into the case and what you get with the light. All right, first up, we have the case for the Sutefoto P100. It has a nice shoulder strap, so if you want to carry it that way, you have that option, and then a nice long handle. On the top, you have 2 Velcro elastic straps for attaching a light stand or any kind of modifier or small softbox or something that you might want to attach here on top of the case. So I appreciate that extra little feature right there. All right, so let's open it up. On the top, you have the power supply in a mesh pocket, and the cable is nice and long. So this is the power brick for the 24 volt DC adapter. And the way that you connect this power brick to the light stand is through this Velcro strap. So you would attach it like this and just tighten this Velcro strap, and that would hold that on the light stand, but you would have to find something to support it. And then you have the rest of the cable here. So let's see how long this actually is. There we go. All right, so the whole cable is 13 feet long, so pretty long cable. All right, next up you have a little foam insert over the top that just kind of protects everything. Light fixture itself. And then, of course, the instructions. And the hyper reflector, which is made with a bowens mount. And it has section dividers in here, so everything fits in here nicely. And then the power adapter goes in the top. And then this is just to keep anything from getting scratched up or dinged up in the case. So good job on the case. When it comes to size, the P100 lands in a good spot, with the 3 fixtures on the left being 60 watt lights and the one on the far right has double the wattage. It's a 200 watt bicolor light on the right that is non-RGB, and the P100 is much lighter and smaller. Alright, let's check out the light itself. It is made of an aluminum alloy, but it feels kind of like a plastic material. The light stand mount is made completely of plastic, but you can tilt it 180 degrees all the way up to all the way down, and it just has one tightening lever on the side that's a thumb screw. But be careful with this because larger modifiers may cause a little bit of extra strain on these plastic parts. So I'm gonna attach this 90 centimeter softbox with the bowens mount on the light and then give it the shake test on the C-stand. And at first glance, it seemed to do pretty good, but then I noticed that it actually gave out with the weight, and then I was able to recreate this numerous times with the shake test. So just be careful with the big softboxes. The light stand mount is also plastic on the inside that connects to the baby pin, so I'm not sure about long-term use with this build. But it does have the release button here on the side for the hyper reflector, and then the COB chip itself has a protective glass over the front here, so it is protected. So that is one little nice advantage, that they did put some protectant over that chip to keep you from scratching it or damaging it whenever you put it down into your bag. And then on each side you have NPF battery slots, and it does take 2 NPF batteries to power the light, and you will only get 80% power of the light with the 2 NPF batteries, so just keep that in mind. You won't get the full 100% on this light unless you plug it in to the wall with the included DC cable. In this section, let's go over how to actually use the light and the functionality of it, as well as dive into the SSLED app for the Sutefoto P100. To power up the P100, plug in the 24 volt DC cable. You can switch it over to DC if you're going to be powering with DC, or hit battery if you're going to be powering it with NPF batteries. So we're going to hit DC. To operate the light, you have 4 different buttons and 2 dials. You have the dim and the set dial. So these are how you go through the different menus and everything. So let's jump into CCT mode. So here is where you're able to jump between the different color temperatures, but the dim dial actually controls my CCT. Now the set dial actually controls the intensity instead of the dim. So just a couple quirky things with that. Now if you press the set button, it'll jump in between the different modes. For the different modes, you have CCT mode, where you can go in between 2800 Kelvin and 10,000 degrees Kelvin. You have an HSI and an RGBW mode, where you can individually dial in different colors. Whenever you're dialing in your specific color on HSI mode, you can use this little scale here at the top, and that'll tell you, roughly what color that you're going to be going into. So there are 10 different effects, and you can go through all of those here, like fireworks and faulty bulb, TV, RGB, paparazzi. So all those different effects. And then you have the channel and the group button if you have more than one of these lights and you want to link them together. By the way, this light is $229 if you are to pick it up on Amazon. So I'll have links to this light below if you're interested, but this is comparative to the light that we reviewed in the last episode of Ray of Light, which was the Colbor CL60R, which is a 65 watt RGB light, but it was made fully of aluminum, and that one was 200. So this one is a 100 watt light that is coming in at $229. So comparative in price, this one does get you a little bit more power, but there are some really cool features to that other light, so I recommend checking out that video after you watch this one. So now we can connect to the SSLED app, I actually have two of these lights, so I already have one connected over there off to the side, and you'll see how I'll be able to go in and change my background color just like that. So now I'll go back and I'll actually add this new light. Okay, now I can select the light, and now you can see I have both of my lights added. And now I have control over each light, so I'm only controlling the light that is here on the screen now. Now I can go back and I can control the other P100 that is lighting my background back there. And now I can control that one individually. Also in this app, you have the ability to dial in whatever color you want. Of course, you're able to control your intensity and your color temperature and everything in CCT mode. And then over here under effects, it's more of a visual representation where you can dial in the frequency and intensity and kind of see what those look like there as images. So, all right, so the app works great and easy to sync up, so I approve of it. It works every single time for me. All right, now let's get into some lighting examples with the Sutefoto P100. So how does the Sutefoto P100 perform in an interview setting if you're gonna use it as your main key light? Well, that's what you're seeing right now. I have the Sutefoto P100 in a 90 centimeter softbox. It's a big, like 3-foot softbox with a grid on it, and it's just off to the side of the camera here. I'm not in an ideal situation. I'm backlit, but you'll find that whenever you're shooting interviews and things like that, a lot of times your clients and people you're shooting will want to be able to see out of the window. Let's say you have a beach back there, something like that. I just have my neighbor's house, so nothing too cool to see here. But let's see how the Sutefoto P100 performs against some of the other lights that we're reviewing here in this series. So let's check it out. So now we're going to be looking at the differences between the colors of the skin and the shirt for the P100 against other lights. So here's another 100 watt light from Zhiyun. And now here is a 60 watt light from Aputure, so much darker than a 100 watt light. Now we have the Godot 60W, which is a little bit brighter, but a fully daylight light. And then the Colbor 60R, which was the last episode. 60 watts is much darker. And then you can see the two 100 watt lights against a 200 watt fixture. That's the Amaran, and we'd have to dial this one down. For the CCT scores, it was a couple hundred degrees off for each of the warmer temperatures, hit spot on around fluorescent at 4300, and then more than a couple hundred degrees off once we get to daylight and beyond. The cool thing about this Sutefoto P100 is that you can actually use it outdoors too as a fill light. With the 2 NPF batteries, you're actually able to get up to 80%, so that would look something like this. In an outdoor interview scenario, let's say you're shooting a documentary and you need to get a little bit of extra light on your subject while he's or she's looking off camera. This would be a perfect light to get plenty of light on your subject and still look natural enough to where it doesn't look overly lit. So what do you think? This is 80% with 2 NPF batteries on there. If you want to get any more power, you could actually hook this up to an external battery and you could get it all the way up to 100%. But having the battery option is really useful for just running and gunning, being able to pop this up on a stand. And I could lower the intensity as well. So this is about 34% right here. So that's nice and subtle. Or I can move the light back. So here is full blast, which is 80% with the batteries. With the Sutefoto P100, the light is 6 feet away, but this is the results that we're getting. All right, so now let's test out the RGB outdoors. So here we are with the light on at 5600 Kelvin, just full daylight, full blast. And now let's switch over to HSI mode and see what we can do. So this is a green color right here. So I can see that with a nice green tint on this side if we wanted to do that. Or maybe we wanted like a nice warm sunset off to the side. So we'll hit it on a nice orange hue here. So here is blue. So this is working. This is working really nicely. So I got an idea. Let's see what it looks like on just the backdrop. All right, so now I just have the Sutefoto P100 off to the side here, only lighting the background. And now I'm gonna use another 100 watt light here. This is the Zhiyun Molus X100. So I put this off to the side here just out of frame. And now we have our key light on our subject. And now we have an RGB light for our background, all done with batteries outdoors. A ton of flexibility, and having the ability to use these Sony batteries on here makes it really, really versatile. So I'm digging it. So let's get back into the studio. All right, let's talk about the fan noise and the overall noise of the light itself. It's actually pretty quiet. There are 3 fan modes. You have auto, quiet, and high. So I keep mine on auto. So it is a pretty silent light until you get about 35% in power. And once you start going above that, the fan will kick on. And then I also did notice too that when you're really, really close to it, you can kind of hear this really, really high pitched, like, I don't know, like a buzz or like a ring almost that's coming out of it. All right, this is our fan test. We have a lavalier up to the light. So we're just gonna kick it on. And you can kind of hear the fan there and that high pitched squeal. So that's really, really close to it. That's only if you put your ear up to it. Other than that, you can't really hear it. Definitely not completely silent, but also it's not loud or really noticeable unless you're getting like really close to the light. All right, let's talk about some things that need improvement on this light. So the yoke is made of plastic and the tightening knobs are made of plastic. So the yoke on this Sutefoto P100 is actually a little bit too weak for this setup. So I recommend getting a smaller softbox than what I'm using here. So just take that into consideration where you're gonna be using this light. I do wish that they made this yoke a little bit more durable with a metal construction and a hand crank tightening lever instead of a thumb screw. The P100 RGB screen is blue, so keep in mind that it is hard to read at different angles. As soon as you start to get off to the side of the light, you can no longer read the numbers. So I'll just show you a couple little viewing angles right here. So the viewing angle is not very good on this light unless you're straight on, then you can read the screen clearly. I'm also not a huge fan of the way the power supply connects to the light stand. It always needs something to support it, and I end up using a bongo tie on it. But other than that, really not much else to say that is negative about this light. So if you're looking for a good amount of power in an affordable RGB light, then the Sutefoto P100 is definitely worth taking a look at. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and leave me a comment if you have questions about anything at all. Shoot for the stars, and I'll see you guys very soon on the next episode of Ray of Light.